I think that goes back to whatever it was last week where I said, I think all this technology, if we get all of our tasks solved and we live in a solved world, this Deep Utopia book from Nick Bostrom, like what do we do when everything is solved?
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about communities and about bringing that back. At the same time, it is so much easier for me to fold into my own reality. And it's, since you and I are both into exercise so much, we hit the gym and we know that it's uncomfortable. And I'll get messages from you some days that'll be like, I don't want to fucking put on the weight vest and go for a walk. I don't want to do this
every day.
But you do it, right? Because you know that the growth that you want and the change that you want is coming from the friction and the challenge.
And the guilt I'll have if I don't do it.
But for so many people, I think it's just easier to let it ride, to slip into like, I don't really need to do that today, to go to the Burger King or the McDonald's. Yeah. And I think that's the problem is you get comfortable with comfort. Yes. You don't want the friction.
And convenience.
Yeah. And
honestly, I think it's something I'm starting to feel more and more strongly about is that we walk into this world where everything's given to us on a plate. We've got a question, we get an easy answer, and that's how we're operating. Like 90% of the time we're awake, and so we start to think of that as the norm, and it's not. We've got to pull back from there. So I'm starting to think of ways that I can try and avoid doing that, and using the ChatGPT in the way I do is deliberately done like that because I don't want the first answer. First answer is going to be rubbish. I accept that, and I want to get to the fourth answer and see where we are.
That's a point that that you have built into your mindset, though, that, okay, I know that the first answer is bad. I know I need to keep going. For a lot of people, I think that first answer, I mean, you know this from the last couple of years, well, people just grab the first answer and it won't even have factual information. They won't even check it, right? Because it'll be the easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's
I write my prompts for this with ChatGPT. I put them in, say, give me topics, but it takes a few iterations before I get to something that I'm happy with. It's the first one. I always like this is almost throwaway, but it will spark the next one and the next one and the next one.
I mean, that's the thing where that going back to that Deep Utopia book, where it's like, okay, in a solved world, we're going to become painters and poets, and there's going to be a renaissance of the arts, and you're like, no. Look at the last 10 years. People are just like, strap an iPad to my face and let me zone out.
Watch people falling off walls and things.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Have you seen Idiocracy?
Oh, yeah. I fear that, Phil.
We are just a few steps away from Ow My Balls.
We really
right?
are.
We're already there with Jackass, right? Yeah. And that was a decade ago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's
terrifying. And the thing is, I think people...
Is it terrifying because we're old? Are we that moment now where we have to admit we're just old man screams at clouds?
Possibly, but I mean that's been going for thousands of years. But I do actually think that younger generations might actually be smarter about how they use some of these tools than we are, because I think we've grown up with the answers getting easier and easier, so we've been trained more than maybe they have.
Well, I recognize where I struggle is to adapt new tools quickly. Like I talk about the skill of agility, but I know I struggle with it. I'll see people, and you're actually a great example of this, and you're a little older than me, where you'll just pick up a new tool and start learning it, and a day later you'll be like, oh, I did this and I did that. And I'm like, damn, okay, like I can barely use Outlook.
I don't tell you about the hours screaming at the screen going, what the fuck, man?
But for me, I always think like, oh man, I got to sign up for a new tool. I got to do that. I got to do that. I got to learn this.
But it's fun. And you connect different skills. And that's, I mean, I started off as a full stack developer with some design skills. So I'm like, I can build anything myself. I don't need anybody else, which is rubbish. I build crap. And with a team, I build good things. But now those skills sort of amplify, and when we've started doing editing for these podcasts, we've started doing sound editing, little bits of snippets of that. It all ladders into some of the AI coding I'm doing. You start thinking, well, can I take snippets from this, stick it into a database? Can I then query it with an LLM? It all starts to join up, and you start to have interesting ideas.
So part of my role at Sapient is working on the global L&D or learning and development for the UX sort of skill set organization, which is like 1,000 people globally. And I've just had these conversations in the last week where we're talking about what tools we need to train people on. Mm-hmm. And after recording this, what I'm realizing is how much I'm not following my own advice, where I'm like, oh, wait, we need to train people on the, whether that is the coaching skills or the empathy skills or the listening skills or the questioning skills or the consulting skills, whatever this is. we need to stop just thinking about the tools and go back to thinking about the people. And now it's one of my tasks this weekend to look at that L&D deck. So now I'm going to go back with that for like a fresh look at that, because I think that's something that this conversation has now made me reflect on.
I mean, I urge you to push the team, get them to come to you. And I'd ask them the question: what are you making this week? Show me something you've made, made outside of work.
Outside of work, because I was like, I think that's
or not project related. Let me rephrase that.
That's where I push back, is because we just get to like, what's the output that you're generating, where you hear, and maybe this is my YouTube, bias filter, because I look up meditation stuff, right? But like, how many people in the last, I feel like 5+ years have talked about get back to doing things like meditation or ways to quiet your mind and ways to listen to the world around you. I think instead of saying, show me something that you made, what was the last interesting conversation that you had with somebody? And I this one would be the only one, like the last interesting one.
You've got to make time for them, though. That's the thing. And it's really easy to just run from one problem to the next. Problem solve, tick box, tick box. And then before you know it, it's time to sleep and you wake up and do it all again.
Especially right now, right? With everything that's going on, everything is like, okay, every week, what are you doing? Yeah. I also think working in the Middle East, it is a little bit like, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me today? There isn't a lot of, you have 3 months to think through this problem. Let's take a strategic view. It's like, we need to do stuff now, which is, I think, a byproduct of the Middle East in general, like catching up. It's one of the most interesting things moving from Europe, and you moved from London here.
I never stopped still. We moved.
So I mean, I was living in Amsterdam for 10 years, where everything is, I would say, much slower in terms of the pace, and everything is more collaborative in the way that people work together and make decisions. And then you come here, and it's just like someone clotheslined you right out of your shoes, because it's like, we got to catch up. And not only are we going to catch up, we're going to do fucking better than everybody else, right? And I think that's, you get into this culture where there's that product of every day you have to be showing something. Yeah. I don't know if I like it or not, but I think I'm really happy that I am here to witness this change in culture, this difference in cultures, so that I can really feel it.
Do you know what the irony is for me at the moment? I'm starting to really think about whether I like Agile as a methodology for delivering work. And I've been an Agile coach for years. I'm trained in SAFe, and every project I've worked on for God knows how long has been Agile in nature. And I'm starting to think, well, actually, most of them, 90+% of them, the innovation sprint has been a luxury that they can't afford. When we look at discoveries, they're never as long as they should be.
Nope.
That thinking time is where the value comes from, is where the game changing comes from, where you actually lead industries is from that thinking time. And when you shortcut it, you get an answer out quickly and on time and on budget. But is it good, or does it just tick the box?
As I've been reading more books on coaching and more biographies of executives, autobiographies or biographies, one of the things that always strikes me is you think of C-level people as probably being the most busy people possible. And they are in a lot of ways, but I've been surprised with how many of them will reserve like half of their day, or try to reserve half of their day to take an hour or 2 hour walk to
But do they let their team do this? That's the question. They do that, but do they let their team?
But I think that's sort of, is that not a catch-22, but it's like, if you don't protect your own time, no one's going to protect it for you,
100%.
right? So I think it's up to you, right? It's the same thing if I go back to the use of technology. Oh, Facebook is so bad, and like we're going to blame Facebook and we're going to blame TikTok. I can put my phone down anytime I want, and yes, they are engineered to spike my dopamine and do this. I know this. I can put my phone down. I can choose to do that. I think there's some personal responsibility in there. So I think it's the same that goes back to your time management. There's some personal responsibility where you can choose how you do that to an extent. It's
difficult though. I think when you're up and coming in your career and you get an email from your boss at 9:00 at night saying this is urgent, you need to action this now. It's hard to say I'm going to deal with that in the morning.
Okay, I will go back to, I think it's Scott Galloway will say this, like during your 20s, work, work. Yeah. And I know a lot of people don't agree with this because a lot of people don't like, whether it's, you want to say hustle culture, work culture, 12-hour, 14-hour days. I do think there is something about putting in just fucking hard work early.
And it's not work if you love it. I think that's the other thing. So
and even we talked about before we recorded, in this last week, it's been for me, a really difficult week at work. It's been really long days. I'm up at 3, working with teams globally. At the same time, I know it won't last forever. It's a good situation that I can learn from, and I don't hate what I do. And so, and the thing is, I wake up, I wake up at 3 and I'm out of the house by 3:30 or 4, and I walk to a 24-hour cafe down the street to get coffee. But what I think saves me every day, and I don't know, this is sort of sad to say, I see the workers changing shifts at about 5 or 6 a.m. So all the workers, the construction workers, leaving and getting on a bus. And I'm like, I'm complaining? Man, I got this good. I'm good. 100%. And so that's one of those, that's my little moments of reflection on my 10-minute walk to the 24-hour cafe, where I'm like, oh God, I'm so stressed out. I hate all of this. And then I see that and I'm like, you know what? Nah, I'm okay. I'm sitting in a 24-hour cafe, having a nice cup of coffee behind my computer, and not relaxing, but I'm not
working
fucking
in the midday
toiling.
sun.
Yeah. I mean, so.
But, yeah, we have it very lucky.
Yeah.